Hashtag broccoli virgin. Hey rabbits, it's Trixie, and I admit the German language can be pretty tricky. This is why it's sometimes helpful to hear that even Germans struggle with it from time to time. In today's episode, I'm gonna do exactly that. I'm gonna tell you 8 German words that even Germans tend to pronounce wrong. Surely not all of them, but to give you a foretaste of what's to come, I found out that I myself say 5 of these 8 words wrong, or at least use less common alternative versions of the correct pronunciation. And I had no clue before I did the research for this video. So chances are high that you will be confronted with quite some surprises as well. One little warning beforehand, since German has a ton of different dialects, there is no such thing as 100% correct or 100% incorrect when it comes to the correct pronunciation of a word. What I base the information in this video on are the recommendations that you can find in the Duden, the biggest dictionary of the German language, which is, in my opinion, a pretty reliable source. So in case that during the video you find out that you say something different to the majority of Germans according to the Duden, this does not mean that you're stupid. However, what it may mean is that your pronunciation has been subject to regional, media, or intercultural influences. That said, let's see how many of the following words you're pronouncing the way that you're supposed to be as a German. To spice things up by adding an interactive part, you can find surveys about 5 of the words. YouTube doesn't allow more than 5. In the top right corner that you can participate in. Let's find out how many of you say a word in a certain way. How do the rabbits talk? 8 German words that even Germans say wrong sometimes. Here we go. Remember when I said to spice things up in the introduction? Well, let's start off with spices. One ingredient that I love to use when I'm cooking, for example, Italian food is this. You can maybe read it already, but I'm gonna spell it here as well. So if you are German, how would you say it? Among Germans, you'll hear 2 different ways of pronouncing this word. It's either Oregano with emphasis on the re, or Oregano with emphasis on the ga. Ist Oregano nicht ein gar wundervolles Gewürz? The Duden only lists one of these pronunciations to be correct, but which one of them is it? Oregano? Oregano? Remember that you can take part in the survey right here. Well, I'm gonna reveal the secret now. The correct pronunciation, or at least the one that the Duden lists, is Oregano. The emphasis is on the re. Did you do it right? Because I have to admit, I was saying it wrong. During my whole life, until now, I said oregano. So all these times when I was telling my friends how much I love cooking and how great of a spice oregano is, they must have been like, yeah. You don't even know how to say the things you're cooking with. Tell us more about how awesome of a cook you are. At the same time, they never told me, so either they didn't know that themselves, or they just didn't care.
And that was the moment when Trixie realized that the content she produces is boring.
Thank you, that's very encouraging. Next up, the German word for ballast or a burden. You can see it here. How do you pronounce it? Again, there are 2 different ways that Germans are saying this word. They either say Ballast or Ballast, pronouncing either the first or the second syllable of the word. I admit that ballast or a burden is not a word that you use every day, so it doesn't really matter if you say it right or wrong. On the other hand, it may appear in sentences like Die letzten Tage waren wirklich stressig. Ich habe das Gefühl, ich schleppe so viel emotionalen Ballast mit mir rum. And it's also part of the word Ballaststoffe, dietary fibers, which are important for our digestion and blood sugar levels, for example. You can, for example, find Ballaststoffe in fruit. They're also contained in nuts and in vegetables.
Learning to eat healthy with Trixie.
Sorry for that. So as you may have heard, I'm saying the word like ballast. But is that correct, or am I teaching you weird stuff right now? Well, I'm proud to say I am telling you weird stuff. Even though saying Ballast is not wrong, the more common way of pronouncing that as a German is Ballast. Der Ballast, die Ballaststoffe. However, if you're Austrian or Swiss, it's more common to say Ballast. So I'm not doing it wrong, I'm just doing it the Swiss or Austrian way. Why not be fancy sometimes? The third word is this one, the German word for gluten. And there are so many discussions online about this word's pronunciation. The thing is that some Germans say gluten and others say gluten. And I'm very curious, how do you pronounce that word?
Trixie, just a little criticism here. Before you keep bragging about pronunciations, shouldn't you tell your viewers what gluten is?
Well, I'm not an expert myself, but I know that gluten is some sort of protein that you find in wheat and grains. Some people are allergic against it and some others don't eat it because they consider it unhealthy, but personally, I've never really paid attention to it. If you know a lot of shit about gluten, feel free to enlighten me. Gluten or gluten? What do you say? Let me provide you with the answer to this age-old question. Actually, I think it's not that old. It just recently happened that gluten became such a thing, right? Anyway, the Duden recommends the pronunciation gluten because that's common for other German chemical compounds. However, saying gluten is not wrong because it's closer to the Latin word that gluten derives from. The Latin word gluten meaning glue. When I spoke about Ballaststoffe, I said that they are contained in vegetables. Vegetables such as broccoli. Nah. Too healthy. And as you can imagine, broccoli is another word where Germans disagree on the pronunciation. It's written like this or like this in German. And some Germans say broccoli while others say broccoli. So the question is it a long O or is it a short O? And yet another question where it matters whether the O is pronounced long or short. Will you say oh or oh when I tell you the truth? The answer is a bit boring, since according to the Duden, both versions... #broccoli virgin. The answer is a bit boring, since according to the Duden, both versions are fine. Yet saying broccoli, short O, is more common and recommended. Do you say broccoli or broccoli? From food to drinks. Coffee is my favorite drink of all times. When I get up in the morning, the first thing I think about is coffee. I need coffee. So it breaks my heart that coffee is one of the most mispronounced words in German. Some Germans, including me, say der Kaffee. Others say der Kaffee, and then there is a third option, which is der Kaffee. Something my grandparents say and it drives me nuts. So what is this divine beverage really called in German? According to the Duden, Kaffee is the most common and recommended version of saying the word. So I was right this time. However, saying Kaffee is also okay. It's a bit more fancy in my opinion. You'll find this pronunciation mostly in Austria. Kaffee, on the other hand, is not listed anywhere, and I guess it's just some sort of mutation, dialect, stuff magic going on. Grandparents, what are you doing? Next word on my list, this one. A word that you use when you want to sound sophisticated. What is it? Paradoxon or paradoxon? So it's a bit of a dangerous situation here. You want to sound smart by using this word, but at the same time, chances are high that you may say it wrong. By the way, it's a statement that appears to be wrong, but turns out to be correct in the long term. The Duden lists paradoxon as the correct way of saying it, which is also the version that I use, but I admit that it's a bit weird, since the adjective is paradox. So even though paradox and paradoxon are obviously related, the emphasis changes. Mysterious. Another fancy German word that many Germans say wrong or in a weird way is this one. I don't really think that I have to explain what it means. Just look it up in a dictionary, you'll find my picture next to it. Among Germans, you'll find 3 different versions how this word is pronounced. Depending on where you go and who you speak to, you may hear charisma or charisma, the way I say it. And then there is charisma. So the first problem is the different pronunciation of the h, and the second problem is the emphasis. H or k, and charisma or charisma. The answer to this really surprised me, since I was pretty confident that the way I say it is the correct way. However, the Duden says that charisma is the most common version. Charisma and charisma are only minor forms. Crazy, right? Do you say charisma? The last word for today that Germans say differently. Again, the research for this video opened my eyes. The word I'm talking about is this. How do you say it? Do you say Motor or Motor? When I thought about this, at first I was like, what's the problem here? Of course it's Motor. But in case you are like me, tell me how you pronounce motorcycle in German. Just read it out loud. Because when I did, I noticed that I say der Motor, but das Motorrad. How is that even possible? That doesn't make sense at all. Das Motorrad is a combination of der Motor and das Rad. So if it's der Motor, how can it turn into der Motor in Motorrad? What is happening? Gladly, the Duden says that it doesn't matter. Both Motor and Motor are fine, even though Motor is more common. So even though the fact that I pronounce the engine Motor and the motorcycle Motorrad is a bit odd, it is still not wrong at least. Alright, Rabbits, what do you say? Did you find out that you say some of the words in a weird way like me? Or do you say all of the words in the way that the Duden recommends? What other words do you know that can be pronounced differently? Is there some sort of pronunciation of a word that you hate because it's obviously wrong? Like people saying espresso instead of espresso? Let me know in the comments and check out the surveys to find out what the rabbits say. I really hope that you had fun with this video today. If so, please leave a thumbs up because that would make me really, really happy. I can give you a carrot too if you want. Come on, rabbit, take a bite. There we go. Good job, you were hungry. Also, if you want, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, and here is a video that you should definitely check out as well. Subscribe to Don't Trust the Rabbit for more videos, and if you want to support my channel even more, you can also find me on Patreon. I would appreciate your help so, so much. Now I wish you all a wonderful day. Hopefully we're gonna see each other in my next video. Bye!